welcome. It is my pleasure to be able to introduce Betsy Lamb, who will herself do other introductions. This is a second in a two-part listening conversation, if I can put it that way, a chance for us to hear from folks that we might not otherwise hear from. So, without further ado, I'll ask Betsy to talk to us a bit more about the focus of this morning's conversation with Milagros, whom we're happy to have with us.
Well, it's my honor to introduce Milagros Aparicio, who works with the Latino Community Association. She's the coordinator of client services here in Bend. LCA is bigger than that. They have offices elsewhere. She'll probably explain that. But she's in charge of client services here, so she's had lots of hands-on experience with people, Latino people, coming to her, to the agency for various kinds of help. And so she really has a sense of what kinds of needs these people may have. And she will also share something about herself, which is revealing as well, because as we learned last week, Latinx people come in a variety of shapes and sizes and educational levels and classes and abilities to contribute to the community and lack of ability because of fears and other things. So we'll hear a lot about what she's doing, and I don't want to hold it up. She was born in Michoacan, Mexico, and she came here in '93, and so she'll tell us something about that too. And we're just delighted to have you with us, Milagros, so welcome.
So I moved to the U.S. in 1993 after finishing high school. I come from a large family, a really conservative family. When I finished middle school, my dad told me that because I was a woman, I wasn't going to go to school, and that women were born to be at the house, cook, and have kids. That's something I didn't want for. I mean, eventually I want to have kids, but not right then. The town that I'm from, it's a small town, maybe 1,500 people. It's a nice, cozy town. Everybody knows each other, which is great. It's a great community town, but there's no opportunities. There's nothing in there. The only school we had was elementary. In order for me to go to middle school, I had to walk 1 hour back and forth. And I did it, like many of us did it in that town. Every day we woke up 6 in the morning because classes started at 7. So we'll walk 1 hour to go to middle school. When high school came along, the nearest high school was a 45-minute drive from the town that I was born. And I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So I begged my sisters and brothers and my dad, and I was told no. Sure enough, one of my brothers said, I can help you. Let's do it. Let's find a job. If you wanting to work, let's find a job. And if you want to go to school, let's go to school. So I did. I worked mornings, and I went to school in the afternoons. And the courage that it drove me is to prove to my dad that he was wrong. That I wasn't going to get pregnant, that I wasn't going to find a boy and have a kid immediately. And I finished high school. After finishing high school, the nearest university or college was 2.5 drive from the town that I was born. There's no way I could have done it. There's no way. So I gave up. And again, I asked my dad, can I work? Can I leave town so I can work? He said no. none of my children, women, are allowed to leave the house to work or to find something else. Again, I'm the last of 8. By that time, most of my sisters were gone. Most of us left the house at early ages, 14, 16. I'm going to speak for my brothers and sisters, but I think none of us wanted to stay there. So I asked my aunt that lives in California if I can move with her. And again, my goal was to go to college. And she said yes. She said, I have a business, you can come and work with me, and you can go to school half day, and half day go to work. I said, that's fine. I'll do it. When I got to the U.S., I thought I knew English. Because I had taken 3 years of English back in my town, and so I thought I knew. I didn't. So first thing, I enrolled myself in English classes, and I started my path to go to college. Once I felt comfortable with the language, then I go, okay, it's time for me to go to college. So I went to and researched, and I learned that my credits that I've earned in Mexico were invalid in the U.S. So I had to do high school again and middle school. So I finished middle school and I finished high school as an adult student. And I felt really good. Then it was time for me to enroll, finally. I was in heaven. A month later, 2 months later, my mom became ill, really ill. And most of my brothers and sisters already had a family. I was the only single person. So it was my turn to go care for them. So I went back and I stayed with them for a year. But I had a knowledge, and I had my education, and I considered myself bilingual by then. So I thought, I can do this. I can work, and I can do it, and it'll be different. It wasn't different. My dad was still the same person. The barriers were still the same. No opportunities in town. The nearest work that I could find was a 2.5-hour drive, and the pay was really low. I survived for about a year and a half. My mom became well. My family from here, who then were a U.S. citizen, requested a visa for my parents. That visa came along. We came back. After that, I landed in Oregon, and then I was still pushing for that college. I started at COCC, life then passed, met my husband, then I did have kids, and as my dad said, it is more difficult with kids. I have 3 kids now. I have a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And how I became in contact with the LCA, I go to the Catholic Church here in town, and when I was about to baptize my oldest son, the priest who actually founded the LCA came and said, oh, I wasn't married by the church then. So I came and said, I need to baptize the kid. And he goes, but you're not married by the church. When are you planning on getting married? And I had no date. And he said, sure, I'll do it. I'll baptize with one condition. You will have to volunteer at the church and at the association. that we have. And I said, not a problem, I can do that. So that's how I got involved with the LCA. I've been volunteering for about 15 years. So I started volunteering in 2005. Then in 2015, I became an employee. So I know the community, I know the people. I actually have a handout. Someone can see. So this one. So this handout that you'll see, it's the growth that the Latino community has gone in Central Oregon. And in the back, it's the most recent services that they've received through the LCA. I was looking at numbers to prepare this material, and I was thinking, that's accurate. Might not be accurate, just because we get really busy and data not always gets entered. So that's, in my opinion, that's an estimate of services. Might not be accurate, could be definitely more than that. So the first one shows this census was created by American Community Survey data, and that's from 2010 to 2016, and that shows the growth of the Latino community in Central Oregon, Deschutes County, Crook County, and Jefferson County. And as far as percentages, that's the bottom of the graph right here. Deschutes County, it's pretty steady. Crook County has been going up and down, and that's because there's more Latinos in the Crook County, but there's less population as well. And the typical clients that we see at the LCA are the ones who need it the most. The ones who otherwise could not meet basic needs as reading a letter, finding a job, communicating with their boss, communicating with their landlord, communicating with the teacher at their school. Now the school district has been, have added bilingual staff in the recent months, in the recent year, I will say. So that has gotten better. Now they're able to communicate. I think now the school district has Latino liaison. I don't think they have one per school yet, but they're getting better. But in the past, even last school year, families were struggling to communicate. Translation is a high priority or a high need in our clients. And so far from January to March, we've served 816 people at the LCA. To alleviate the translation services needs, we do have English classes. Many times, though, our clients are going to put work first, then education. Last week, I was talking to a volunteer, and this volunteer shared that she's been in the U.S. for about 10 years, and her focus was to work. Work, 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 work. She had an accident at work, and therefore she needed to rest and needed to get well on her knee. And she's been taking English classes with us for the last 2 years, I will say. And she has taken computer classes. And since she had free time, I recruited as a volunteer. And so that gave me the opportunity to know her a little bit more. And then I asked her, so what have you done in the last 10 years. And she said, work? I came here to work. And not until I had my accident, I realized that there was other things to do. Not until I had this freedom of my schedule, I realized that I could take computer classes, that I could take a class to help my kid at school. Now that she's in recuperation, she shared that she's not going to focus on work only, that there's other things, like spending time with the kid, like finding a job that doesn't require, or finding a job, or one job instead of two jobs. And that's the mentality of our people, many times. What we do at LCA, we don't have funds. That's one thing. We refer our clients to services in the community that we know. For example, legal, we refer them to lawyers. We often have lawyers to come to our office and they have a free consultation. We help clients with citizenship. We have tutors for people who cannot attend the classes, and they can meet one-on-one in their own schedule. We have tutors that help them with the language, and we also have tutors that can help them with computers. And those tutors actually become part of their family at some point. They not only help with the language or the computer, but they help with any issue that the family might be going through. We also help with enrolling people with the OHP, and that's not only for Latinos, that's for everyone who comes to our door. Just in the last 3 months on that service, we helped 317 people for enrolling people to OHP. We also been focusing, and that's something that it's my passion, it has been my passion, and I've kind of started it. We started to focus on kids. Like I said, I have 3 kids, and I want them to have the best opportunity in life, or the same opportunity that everybody else. But I still don't like to stay home. And daycare is really expensive, so I tried to stay home and it just doesn't work for me. So when I took this job at the LCA, it was a part-time because I had 3 kids and daycare was really expensive. And many times in other jobs I had quit it for the summer because I wasn't gonna pay for 3 kids. And then so when I started at LCA, I said it's part-time. I can do, I can focus on them 2 days and work 3 days. But then I find out that those 3 days they were just in the TV, watching TV all day. And I didn't like that. So I started bringing them at the office with me. And I will say, go to the library, go to the park, and they come and see me and then we'll go home. That way I'm guaranteed that you're not on the screen all day. Then I started thinking, how many more families are going through the same thing that I'm going through? Then I started a program for kids, doing the same thing. Just what worked for me, let's see if it works for the families. Again, at LCA we have no funds. So I started opening these, inviting families to bring their kids for 1 day a week, so they can drop them off at the LCA and they can walk at the library, or they can go at the park And we started with about 10 kids. Now we have 30 kids that are participating. And not only that, we partnered up with businesses around downtown or in organizations like KBOP, the Shrewsbury Library, the museum over here. And this year, this Cascade School of Music are going to give us 10 free classes for those kids.
Oh, wow.
So to me, it's a wonderful opportunity for kids that otherwise will not have that opportunity. Not only that, again, thinking of the kids, I live on a mobile home park, which 80% of the residents there are Latinos. And a lot of those families leave their kids by themselves, just like I did. And the oldest sibling is caring for the youngest. And no matter how early I get up to make them food, they might decide not to eat it. They might decide to watch TV and forget about food. Or they prefer chips. And so last year we partnered up with the library to bring activities to those sites. For example, at the Country Sunset Mobile Home Park where I live, and another area behind Chan's restaurant. There's an apartment building that most of the residents are Latinos in that area as well. And then the Pines Mobile Home Park as well. So now we're bringing services to kids, and if they're by themselves, they're in the neighborhood. They can come by themselves. We don't need a parent. So we're bringing activities. The library is giving out books. We bring snack. We read, we play, and they're out of the screen for at least 2 hours. And they're being supervised. So that has been really rewarding for me to start and to focus on an area that the kids are our future. The kids, they need to see opportunities. They need to see something else besides TV. Any questions? You ask me. I could get lost on talking. So please ask me, what would you like me to focus, or what would you like me to talk about? We have
What is OHP?
Oregon Health Plan.
Thank you.
What's the English proficiency of both the kids and their parents?
The kids, I will say, most of the kids are bilingual. If not, 90 to 95% of the kids will be bilingual. And the parents, at least our clients, again, not all the Latino community is our client, because there's business owners, there's people who are second generation. But at least our clients, 95% of our clients are not bilingual or don't speak the language or don't feel comfortable speaking the language. I think there was a question somewhere.
What kind of opportunities are for volunteers are available if you aren't bilingual, if you're only speaking?
Many.
Can you repeat that, please?
How many opportunities for non-bilingual, if you don't speak Spanish, per se? Many. Like I mentioned, we have the tutor program, and you really don't have to speak Spanish, because it is even better if you don't. And sometimes, because if you tutor someone, they're going to force themselves to try. If you know you speak Spanish, they will speak Spanish to you. So yeah, so they'll if you don't speak Spanish, it's good because they're gonna force themselves to practice, and they're gonna learn faster.
I see you have a line item here, emotional support or emotional health services. Do you have somebody that volunteers to help with maybe a kid that's, I don't know, maybe being bullied at school, or a parent who's under the gun at, well, that wouldn't be, who's under pressure at work?
We don't have one right now. Brad and Oscar are working with the school district and other organizations to create a program like that. That's why we have zeros, because we haven't finished that program. So it's in work in progress. We do have a Spanish-speaking family counselor, but she's not pro bono. So as of right now, we don't have anybody. We have identified the need. In fact, we've done a survey about how our families feel, and last year it was really high. The tensions and emotions were just really high. I think right now are calming down a little bit. They're used to it at least. But that's work in progress.
Are some of the families you serve undocumented, and how do you help them?
And the answer is yes. We do ask for status in our intake, and just because we don't want to send a client that is undocumented to a service that he would receive. Some organizations or businesses, for example, legal aid, they need to be permanent residents or U.S. citizens in order for them to help the client. And if the client is going through a legal issue, we're not going to refer them to legal aid because they're not going to be helped. So therefore, we do ask for status, and yes, we have undocumented people in our client base. We don't share that information though with anybody. And how we help them, we partnered up with the lawyers in town, the immigration lawyers in town, and they provide legal information. And lately we've been partnered up with a nonprofit firm that comes from Portland. It's called Immigration Counseling Services. And they provide appointments. They provide once a month they come. And we take their information, we send their information to them, and then they provide a free consultation for our clients. And that happens every month. It will happen for the next year. So there's resources.
I noticed in looking at the population chart that the Phoenix community was 14,000 in 2016. And then the way I figure it, that's about 1/6 of the population of Deschutes County. Why don't we see more of a presence of the Latino community in Bend and in Deschutes County?
I'm going to speak for myself, and this is my opinion. Now that I got this from maybe data source, but my experience with the clients that I've served. One is work. Work is a priority. And two is fear. They don't want to be out there. They want to be somewhere safe. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to participate. They don't trust either an agency or a place, they will not come.
As a follow-up on that last statement, is the safety because they are not legal, or is there some other element?
Yes, because the status, immigration status. And another factor will be transportation, because if they're undocumented, they're driving without a driver's license. And the less the risk, the less the less they drive, the less the risk.
I'm just asking this question because I think there are a lot of people who probably want to ask it. Isn't there a way you can just help them go and you know, regularize their status?
It's not that easy. No, there's no way. There's definitely no way that someone can go and say, I'm here, help me out, or what do I do to get legal? The immigration system right now, and I'm not an expert by any means, but there's no law that says whoever follows these paths will qualify for a green card. There's people who's been here for 30 years and have nothing.
And there's a catch-22 to people who have been here for 30 years going in and saying, I'm here illegally, because they actually will have no path to getting a green card or citizenship and will be part of deportation because of the fact it's a big catch-22. If you're here illegally and you go in and say, I'm here illegally, I'd like to find a path to citizenship, you're here illegally and send you home. So
Exactly.
that's
You're here, well, you don't meet the criteria. There's
biggest problem.
nothing that protects you.
That's right.
Then you have 30 days to leave.
Do you make referrals for people who are looking for a really good meal to our family kitchen? Do you know about that?
We do. I have that in my office. I have the cards in my office about the family kitchen. I don't have many requests though. That I can tell you. We can partner up to get it out there, inform maybe, or find a way to drag more people.
What about for like young guys that are working, that are single? I mean, that for them would be, you know, a really good meal many times a week.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
I just wondered-
Transportation.
Huh.
Transportation again.
Transportation.
Yes. Transportation will be another.
Just so you know, we don't do any kind of checking as you go in.
How many of these families are actively involved at St. Francis, proportionately, roughly? How many of them are evangelical, and how many of them are like whatever?
I will say 80% of the families are participating at the Catholic Church.
And the woman I worked with went to the Catholic Church in Redmond.
Mm-hmm.
She was very involved.
Very involved. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what degree involved per se. I know they're participants, but I don't know how many are they really involved.
In your involvement with the community, do you see much in the way of drug abuse or alcohol and those negative influences?
No, I think less than 5%, either including drug and alcohol.
Are deportations happening?
Not that we know of. Again, I don't think they're going to publicize all the records. And when a deportation happens, the family doesn't want to make it public either. So in the last 2 years, I think I've heard about 2 cases. That doesn't mean it's not happening more than that. But at least it's not happening, or that we know of, in a mass.
Does the school district contact the Latino Community Association when they need a translator to do work with a parent-teacher conference? Or do they do that internally in the school district? Or is there work between the two agents?
They do it internally. They work directly with High Desert, forgot the name, Educational ESD. And they provide their interpreters.
Okay.
Is food security an issue for the community, and if so, who are you partnering with, or do you provide some of those yourself, or?
No food, we don't provide. I have a little basket people who donate, and I have for free to take. I refer to the Family Kitchen, to Salvation Army, but Salvation Army, I've heard that they do verify status for that, for any service. So I haven't been referring to them.
Right.
St. Vincent de Paul.
And San Vicente de Paul, yes.
Is there a lot of hunger? Is food security? I mean,
I wouldn't say there's a lot of hunger.
okay.
No, I think they alleviate that with work.
What about healthcare availability for people, especially for undocumented people? Do they have any access to healthcare, individuals or services of any kind?
Yes and no. Yes, because there's the wonderful volunteers in medicine in Mosaic Medical. So, and no, because they cannot apply for any insurance.
Yeah.
They don't have medical insurance. Dental, it's another problem. Even in Central Oregon, dental services, it's a high need, especially for our community, because they don't have health insurance. Mosaic Medical only provides cleanings, and then volunteers in medicine refer their cleanings and their dental issues to COCC dental program. And the wait list for that, there's a waiting list, and you can be in the waiting list for about 8 months to a year. In the past, we partnered up with a hygienist who came and did cleanings at the LCA, but now she's working at Mosaic Medical. To alleviate that, we are in works with partnering with Doctors International, and they will bring a mobile clinic to our office to see clients for extractions and infections and dental work. The challenge we're having with that is that we don't have, since we rent that, we're part of that building and we rent the office, the parking is not ours. And we'll be blocking the whole parking lot. So other businesses are not happy. So we're having issues with arranging that program.
I happen to know that Mosaic Medical is expanding to do cleanings, extractions, fillings, just so you know that. It's not just limited to cleaning.
And do you know if there's also the wait list that they have to be on the wait list?
Yeah, there is a wait list, but I don't know anything about 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
So
that's what I've heard.
You might have somebody recheck that. I happen to be on the committee there, and
that's good.
yeah, they're expanding as quickly as they can.
Good.
Do you use the Campo Dental Clinic for children?
Yes. Yeah, and in fact, in the last 2 years, they expanded to, it used to be 19 years, now I think it's up to 24.
Great.
Yep.
Do you have an estimate of what proportion of the Latino population that you're serving is undocumented?
I'm going to say 75 to 80%. At least our clients.
Milagros, this community would like to help. And can you just extemporaneously, at the spur of the moment, just tell us what are the 3 ways that we could help the Latino Community Association help our Latino brothers and sisters? What would be the most helpful?
In many ways, I think where we see not an issue, but it can become an issue soon, the building, the providing services, besides monetary need as well. But the building that we're at, I don't know how many of you have visited the Latino Community Association, but our office is only half of this radius. And we rent that space. We share the building with 10 more association organizations. And we're looking for a building that we can provide the classes. We've partnered up for the classes, for the English classes, citizenship classes, and computer classes. We've partnered up with other organizations like churches. We currently have the classes at First Presbyterian. But ideally, we would like to have a center where we can provide all our services in one place, so people can identify us and people can feel secure and people can recognize that as part of their home. So that's how can you help us? That's a goal that the Latino Community Association has, to have a center that we can be identified. Another way you can help us, I don't know how many of you have heard about the IP22.
Yes.
So that's another.
Can you say more about that? What is that?
Yes, so IP22, it's a petition who will repeal the Oregon sanctuary law. So if it does go through, there will be connection. Right now, what it is that if someone commits a crime, they will automatically be deported. But if someone gets a citation, a driving citation for not having a driver's license, or a minor misdemeanor crime, or I don't think they're called crime if it's a misdemeanor. Anyway, if any undocumented person becomes in contact with the police, right now there's no sharing information with the federal government. But if this law passes, whatever contact they have with their a traffic cite or citation or any contact with the police, it will go directly with the federal government, and that will trigger deportation.
So that's up for a vote?
That will be in the ballot. We're trying to stop to be in the ballot, so it can be stopped. And for that, if you say no to IP, even if it becomes in the voters pamphlet, we're asking for you to vote no on the IP22.
Is that something to sign?
Yes, these are petitions that we're trying to collect to send and say, this is how many people are saying no beforehand.
Could we just pass these around and if
You
people
can.
would like to
Yep.
sign them?
And I'll be happy to get them. I'll be collecting those until July, and you can drop them off
Give them back to me and I'll see that they get to her. Or you can give them back right
So
away.
that's another way to support. Another way to support, there's many ways to support. Another way to support, we have the Gala de Oro coming up. And that's an event that we we rely on two main fundraisers on the year. One is the luncheon and one is the Gala de Oro. Those are our main fundraisers for us to keep it going and keep ourselves open. This event is happening April 28th at the Boys and Girls Club from 5:30 to 11:30. And we have two different sections. We have a dinner and we have a dance. If you like to go have dinner and go home, it's from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. If you like to not have dinner but have appetizers and have a dance, 7:30 to 11. Invite your folks, invite your people, come see us. That's another way to support.
What day is that?
That's the 28th, next Saturday,
Saturday. And where is it?
at the Boys and Girls Club.
And we have to sign up ahead of time, right?
Yes, you will have to, there's a website called galadeoro.org that you can register and purchase your ticket.
Can you say that again? Gala?
Galadeoro.org.
GALADEORO.
GALDEORO.
Can we keep that posted?
Yes, you can.
Jed's gonna.
Coming to get you. Post it, put it up.
And our time is about up. I was just wondering if you could say a couple of words, if there are other ways to volunteer in addition to volunteering as tutors. And how would you go about that?
Yes, we have a volunteer coordinator. Her name is Mary Murphy. And there's many ways to volunteer. You can volunteer with the kids programs that we created to go to the parks, to help the kids walk around downtown, to even create a program. If you have something in mind that you think that we can work together with the families, we can create it. I'm ambitious. Volunteer, you can volunteer with us at the Gala de Oro. You can, we also host an event, a cultural event called Festival de Culturas, Festival of Cultures. And right now we're in the process of deciding whether we want to do it in Bend. It has been in Redmond for the last 10 years, but we want to try Bend because it's a little bigger and we want to show the culture as well. Redmond hasn't been really supportive. That's another reason we want to try in Bend because we feel really supported in Bend. So that's another way. We have different events that if you want to volunteer just for a specific amount of time, you come and tell us. If you want to volunteer for a long period of time, we have those opportunities too.
Can you volunteer at tutoring and?
You can volunteer. You can also volunteer with me at the office. There's always data entry.
Milagros, we want to thank you so much for this. Just been a wonderful presentation.